Hall of Fame broadcaster Marty Brenneman here, and he's the best storyteller in the game, and it's time to sit back, relax, and have some laughs. Welcome to the Mayor's Office, and here's your host, Sean Casey.
Bam, Chinchy. We're back at it. We're back at it, dude. There's nothing like being back at it with you, brother. I love it.
Very exciting day, too. One of the best human beings I've ever met.
I know.
On our show.
Dude, I honestly, every week, it's so great doing this, in the mayor's office, because we get guys on that are buddies of ours and just great human beings and have great stories. This guy, bro, I was telling him before we came on, I said, Ronnie, I don't know what the hell to do here. I got so many ways to go. I feel like we could talk to you for 5 hours, but you've done so many awesome things. I don't know. He might be the smartest guy in Major League Baseball history, first off. That's the first thing. 136-16 with a 3.87 ERA, right? Played 13-plus years in the big leagues for the Mets, a little bit with the Expos, and finished with the A's. All-Star in 85, World Series champ with the Mets in 86. Can't wait to get into that because we've already seen the 4-part series that he's a huge part of. Gold Glove in 89, stud athlete, went into the Mets Hall of Fame in 2021. Was a big part of winning Game 4 in the 86 World Series. He's been the color commentator for the Mets since 2006 till present day. Works with us at MLB Network, and he was also on the cover of GQ. That's when you know you're legit, when you're on the cover of GQ. Let's bring him in, our man, our friend, Ronnie Darling. What's up, Ronnie?
How you doing, Case? Thank you for having me, Chinch. It's always a pleasure. And, what's amazing, Case, is that you and I are not the same generation of player. So I never was given the gift of standing on first and letting you go off and talk to everyone that gets on first. But can you imagine you turn that and about 2,000 hits into this? And I want to congratulate both you guys. I know you won an award recently and well-deserved.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie. Yeah, appreciate it, brother. Yeah, it is amazing, bro. Like, it is funny looking back at how your life goes, how your career goes, and then what you're doing now. It's kind of the same way with you, man. All those years in the big leagues, you were at Yale probably thinking you were going to be on Wall Street. Next thing you know, you're in the big leagues for 13 years, and then you've been, doing the color commentating for years. So it is amazing how being a professional athlete, where your career can go, it's crazy.
Think about it. Chinch and I, from Columbia and Yale, respectively, the biggest black sheep of our classes. I mean, everyone else,
absolutely.
Everyone else is flying to the moon. They started Bitcoin. They're buying Twitter with Elon Musk, and we're doing a simple podcast, but whatever it takes.
We'll take it.
Whatever it takes. Oh, Ronnie, well, dude, obviously your intro tells the fans out there we got so many places to go, but I want to start back to the beginning where it all started for you. You were born in Honolulu, but you moved to Worcester, Massachusetts. Now, I got to know the story from that because they are so far away from each other. How do you get from Honolulu to Worcester, Massachusetts?
By the way, Case, good job. That is not easy to say, right? Honolulu is a really tough word to say.
It's a tough one, bro.
I was born there. I really have no memory of it. My dad was an Air Force guy. He met my mom. They had me and my brother. We ended up taking a flight and a train back to Massachusetts because my dad got a job offer. And when we got there, I lived just outside of Worcester in a town called Millbury, but it's right on the edge. I grew up right behind Holy Cross College, for anyone knows that area. So I have, this brown skin, Hawaiian-looking dude, and I was dropping my R's until I was 17 years old. So it's a very a funny mix, but I know that when I was playing, I would get all of this kind of, this and, how you doing, brah, and all that stuff. And I'm thinking, these people have no clue. Like, I was born and raised with Italian and Irish Catholics, calling me the Samoan, So it's strange even to this day. But I will say I've spent a lifetime, to tell you the truth, because both my parents had a difficult path. My dad was kind of an orphan kid. So was my mom, who lost her mom at childbirth. All of that stuff. So I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out who I come from, where I am, And I tell you, that's been the greatest journey for me, to tell you the truth, because my parents don't have a lot of stories. I didn't grow up with any grandparents or uncles or aunts or any of that kind of stuff. It was just my three brothers, me, and my parents. And we were like this, no one could bust us up. So it was a great childhood.
Did you ever talk to your parents about being, about being an orphan? Did you ever, like, what'd they say?
Yeah. I mean, for most folks, the stories aren't pleasant, and what I think about my parents, my dad used to sleep in barns. He was in the orphan system in Vermont. And what would happen to him, because he was a big kid, he was an athletic kid, they would, through like the farm, when farms needed big strapping young kids from the orphanage, he was on the top of their list. And he would go live with the family while they needed hands to help with the farming and all that, sleep in barns, then be shipped back to the orphanage, all that kind of stuff. He left when he was 16, before he was even of age to go, and joined the Air Force, and got stationed in Texas and other places, and ended up in Hawaii. And then my mom really has no history. Her mom died at her birth. She's a twin. Wow. So her dad, I don't know what happened there. I've always heard he felt kind of ashamed or whatever. He took off. So she ended up growing up with her aunts, uncles, grandparents, whatever. So like a lot of kids, and it's a unfortunate thing, the stories aren't pleasant. But I will tell you, for two people like my parents to start the way they were as kids, raise four boys, send them to private school. My dad was a foreman in a machine shop. He's still around. Both my parents are around. Wow. My dad was a foreman in a machine shop for 55 years. Wow. My mom was just getting the belt and taking care of us at home, for us, whatever. And but for two people to find each other with similar kind of backgrounds, and then produce this amazing life for me and all my brothers. Who my brother Eddie, who's a year younger than me, played in the Yankees farm system. He was right behind Don Mattingly. That was probably a bad choice of teams.
That's a problem.
Yeah. I was. My brother Brian played at Old Dominion. He's a entrepreneur, businessman who just recently retired. And then I have a younger brother who played for the University of South Carolina, center fielder. So the entire family is incredibly athletic and fun to be around. And I don't know about you and your siblings, but Thanksgiving and Christmas, whatever, me and my three brothers, it is like, it's crazy. It's the funniest. It's still to this day, I just laugh, like belly laugh, where your abs hurt the next day.
Dude, what was it like? I mean, you're saying this story, and I'm thinking, man, what was it like growing up in the Darling household? Was it nuts?
We had an unfinished basement. It was all cement. So in the wintertime, that's where we played sports. We were big into hockey then. If you grew up my age in Boston, right, Bobby Orr was your hero. So the Boston Bruins were the greatest thing. So we played a lot of indoor and outdoor hockey. And if it was really bad, if we played indoor hockey, my youngest brother, Charlie, when we were playing, was a baby. So he'd be in the baby carriage. We would put it in front of the goal. So the wheels, underneath the wheels and the baby carriage, that was the 5-hole. We would take a sock and roll it up, and we'd be peppering the goal with this sock, and occasionally wake up Charlie. So he still suffers to this day from a lot of PTSD. Yeah, PTSD. And then my brother Eddie, who's the sweetest kid ever, he's a year younger than me. I was one of these crazed competitor guys. I had to have it every single day. It's 10 o'clock at night in the summertime. Let's go. Let's play hoop. He was a mild-mannered kid, happy-go-lucky, playing with his army men. And I'd go kick him over, and I said, come on, let's go play some hoop. We'd go out and play hoop. And the funny thing about it is that we used to call him Moose. He was the biggest kid of any kid of all time. When we went freshman year in high school, he was 6'2", 175 pounds at 13, 14 years old.
Oh, my God.
He could have broken me in two, but he never did because he was just one of those gentle giants. So I was lucky.
God, so great. What about your parents, Ronnie? Like you said, you guys are so close. Their stories, you sound like wonderful people. Like, what advice, what was some of the biggest advice they gave you and your brothers growing up in that house?
Yeah, I think a lot of it in my house anyways was, kind of watch what they were doing. Like my parents were incredibly moral people. My dad worked 3 jobs when I was a kid. And then, like I said, worked for this foreman in a machine shop for whatever. So the work ethic, that's what he taught us, right? And then my mom was just and such a gifted athlete. If she had been born during Title IX, she would have went to college and she would have been a volleyball and softball player. To this day, she's going to turn 80 in August. She could play proper catch. Proper catch, like not like lava tour. You could throw the ball, she could catch it, and she could throw it back to you, like no issue at all. Just an amazing athlete. And I think for them, growing up with them, my mom's, kind of brown like I am, and we grew up in a different kind of hardworking place. And sometimes she was, she was never mistreated, but she wasn't always included either, So we became a really close unit, did everything together, whether it was going to church when we were young, whether it was winning or losing together. But I will say they're hardworking people and they're tough. We didn't get raised in a house where everyone got a trophy. It was, if you wanted a real new glove case, you had to earn half of it. My dad would pay the other half, but you had to earn at least half. If you wanted a car when you were 16, you had to raise $600 and you get the other 600, you have 1,200 for a jalopy, whatever. And they were just like that. A good story I have to tell you how tough my parents are. So we're playing in a championship game. I'm pitching. No, we had another guy pitching. I'm playing shortstop. I didn't pitch till later. My brother's playing first base. So it's 2 outs, bases loaded, going to go into extra innings tied, ground ball to my brother, goes between his legs, right? So we lose the game, heartbreaking. In the Little League, almost everyone in the field is crying at this point. You know what I mean?
I was a crier.
Exactly. So, it's at some point he's overcome, and being the big brother I was, my parents, who were a little disgusted that the whole thing happened, they're in the car. And they're ready to go. Car's on. They're ready to go. And, Eddie's still crying. And I remember I put my arm around him. And you could either go to my parents' car in the parking lot or walk across the highway to go home. So I took him. I'm like, forget you guys. We walked across the highway home because he needed that 30 minutes to kind of get rid of the cry, So
that's so great. Oh my God. I love that your parents are like, all right, let's get in the car. We're out of here.
Yeah, it's out of here. Before anyone realizes we raised a couple of losers here. Let's go.
Oh, so great. So you grew up in Millbury, right? Millbury, Mass.
Yeah.
And you end up, obviously you were a great athlete, played your main sports, your football. I know you were a good football player. Did you play hoops too? Like a 3-sport athlete at the time?
Yeah, I was, football was my number one sport. Hoops was the sport I loved the most. But if you're my age, what happened in hoops case is that my freshman year, I averaged, 20 points or so on my way, right? And then my sophomore year, Dean Smith put in the 4 corners. So everyone in America was playing the 4 corners where the final score is like 16-8. Right. And I'm like, oh my God. I got to have the rock like 25 times. Man. This thing is going up. I can't be dribbling the ball and like passing it around. So I ended up giving up basketball. I ran track and then played baseball. But football was my first love. I really loved the game, and it was well suited to like my skills.
So Ronnie, when you were coming out of high school, because I know my kids are obviously my one's a sophomore, one's a freshman. So the recruiting process of sports, my one buddy's son is going to Columbia to play baseball next year, but I really think he could go some other big time schools, but like when the Ivy Leagues call, you kind of, go that direction. Is that what happened to you? How you got to Yale? Were there other schools that wanted you, but you were like, were your parents like, hey, the Yale education, you got to go there? How did that work out?
Well, here how it came about. So neither of my parents graduated from high school. So I was the firstborn. All they cared about was that I went to college. So in my house, what happened, my dad was an Air Force guy, is that I was recruited and I was offered full scholarships at different schools. No big schools, some University of Connecticut, Massachusetts, schools like that, not Oklahoma or Nebraska or anything like that. And but I decided my junior year that I was going to Air Force and Air Force Academy. What? And I was so excited about it. All the recruiters knew I was going to Air Force Academy. I went through the entire process where you got to get your senator and your congressperson to write you a letter. You have to be able to make it. If I fill out the application, you got to beat all these other cats that want to go. And I was ready to go. Everything was signed, sealed, and delivered. And I wish I had a better reason, Case. I chickened out. I just, at the last minute, 5 years commitment after I'm done. That's 9 and 18. That's 27. I just freaked out. So the kind of scholarships, they decide earlier about the scholarships to any school. They were gone, and I hadn't really thought about anything else than Air Force Academy. So then I started in the beginning of my senior year. I thought Williams was a really great school to go to. I thought Amherst might be a nice place, smaller colleges, whatever. And then I applied to Harvard and Yale. And I ended up getting into them. And Yale just was the perfect fit because I had a buddy from my high school that had gone there the year before. So I felt like I was at least going to have one friend there. I didn't want to be in Harvard because it's about 40 minutes from my house. I wanted to be a little further from everyone, all my buddies, all that kind of stuff. I spent a recruiting trip at Williams and Amherst when it was minus 25. That did not feel right. So I decided on Yale, and it became the best choice for me because they had a great football coach in Carm Koza. Their baseball program was absolutely second rate. They were 7-27 the year before I got there. And our teams were funny. We had mostly hockey players that loved baseball. And me and my friend, my best friend to this day, ended up being, the better baseball players, and the team got better quickly. But it was kind of a little bit of a fluke that I ended up there. But it was, serendipity is a strange thing, I don't know if you feel this way, Case, but I feel like at most times in my life, I've had this little guardian angel that's kind of pushed me in different ways, or I've had a coach who made a difference in my life, or, I've been traded at the right time. All those things I can't, you can't explain them all.
Can't explain it.
Yeah, you can't. You're honored that it happened to you,
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy you say that, Ronnie. I always feel like the circle of life goes forward. And if you jump in it sometimes and you just kind of surrender to it, you start going places. You're like, how'd all this happen? And you look back and you go, wow, I met this guy at the perfect time. This is the perfect city for me. And all of a sudden you look back and you go, wow, it all happened exactly how it was supposed to happen. I have that exact story.
Yeah, I think that one thing I've learned, and I'll be 62 this year, is that I was more closed-minded when I was younger, and I'm more open-minded about everything, because I understand that there's a lot of folks out there that life's really, really hard, and I'm one of the fortunate ones, and I never ever forget that.
Yeah, it's the truth, man. Well, when you're, for you, bro, I didn't realize you were at Yale. You pitched, but really you were a shortstop outfielder, right? Didn't you tell him, listen, I'll pitch, but you make sure you're not taking my bats away?
I hated pitching, hated pitchers. I hated pitching. I hated everything about it. I wanted to be the next Cal Ripken. That's all I cared about. I wanted to be the next guy who was raking, playing shortstop, not a little guy who was hitting above 80 every year. I felt it. but lack of talent, lack of talent takes you to someplace else. And I remember I played in an all-star game at Fenway Park when I was, 16 years old or something. And one of the scouts came up to me from the Red Sox, and he said, "You're going to Yale, right?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, so happy for you, because there's not really a place for you in the major leagues." He said, "You're a tremendous athlete." He goes, "You're a tremendous athlete," but he goes, "There's not really a place for you." So step forward a couple of years later, I'm playing against the ACBL. Chinch, you know the ACBL.
Yeah,
It's kind of a summer baseball league, and they were playing the Cape Cod League. And I don't know, Case, did you play at the Cape Cod League?
I played in the Cape, dude. Best summer of my life, 1994.
What team?
I played for Brewster, Whitecaps.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I played for the Catuit Kettleers. Same thing. It was the best year of my life, summer of my life.
Greatest.
Every night you're playing, at 5 or 6 o'clock? As soon as the game's done, you're at the local wherever, hanging out, doing your thing. Yep. And I had more fun. So we're playing, this time in Yankee Stadium. And I have one of those games that, you write home about. Had 3 home runs and a jack, and Yankee Stadium to left center. Thank God it was aluminum bat. And then I pitched the 9th inning, get to save, whatever. I'm not saying the story because of that. I'm saying because after the game, I get this award from Stick Michael. Gene Michael, one of the greatest baseball minds of all time. And it just tells you it's such a strange world. But as he gives me the trophy and everyone's taking pictures, whatever, he said to me, he goes, "I don't know where you're going to play, but you fit in the major leagues. We're going to find a place for you to fit in the major leagues." And that was 2 years after I'd heard that I would never fit in the major leagues. Wow. That was one of the kindest gifts that anyone ever gave me.
That's amazing. Wow. And by the way, that scout did not do his research, because when I was looking at, me and Case were doing like your background research. I'm like, he was MVP of that league in his junior year of high school. Yeah. Well, he played in this one tournament, MVP, and then the other ones he was the MVP. And oh, by the way, he was a quarterback and a D-back, and he was the biggest guy on the field. So I wonder where that scout is right now.
I don't know about the scout, but think about Case. Case did everything he could not to have to go to school anymore, just to rake, go out there and get hits, and now you're back at school.
That's the truth. It's the truth. Oh my God, me and Chinch are going back and forth. What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? We're like, man, how about this? How about this? It's unbelievable. Okay, so at Yale, dominate the Cape Cod League, by the way, MVP, right? MVP, and you pitched and hit, right?
Yeah, there's 2 awards there you want to win, the MVP and the best pro prospect. I won both of those. And listen to this. I almost never got a chance to play. I go to the Cape Cod League after my sophomore year at Yale. The Cape Cod League is full of University of Georgia, Florida State,
big dogs.
So the big dogs. So I went there, and George Greer, I don't know if you ever ran across George Greer, but he was the coach of Clemson, ended up being the hitting coach for the Mets and the Cardinals for quite some time. But he was their manager. And I got on the phone with him, and I said, "Hey, George, I'd love to play in the Cape Cod League if you have any room." He says, "Well, I really don't, because I have all these guys from the University of Minnesota, the University of Nebraska that are at the College World Series, but they won't be back with us for 2 weeks. So you can play the first 2 weeks. And then, I can't promise you anything after that." So I was like, "Yeah, I'll take 2 weeks." And then ended up being the best player in the league, which you never know when you're going to get a shot.
Great.
But because I was low on the totem pole, I had a real job. I was a janitor at a school. Now, if you're one of the upper echelon guys, you might end up washing 1 car a day and then taking a nap, right? I was a janitor in a school. I was Goodwill Hunting before there was Goodwill Hunting. I was manning that machine, mopping the floors, buffing the floors, like 6 hours of work every day, and then I got to go get 3 knocks. It was crazy.
Oh my God, dude, Ronnie, I got a story just like that, bro. I worked at the Stop and Shop out there in Brewster, bro.
Yeah.
I was the summer help. There was like 8 women worked in the bakery, and they're like, hey, go work in the bakery. And they're like, you could tell when I walked in, they're like, oh, hell yeah. They're like, how you doing, son? I'm like, I'm doing great. They're like, here's a winter coat and winter gloves. We want you to stock the freezer every day. We want you to go out to the back of the truck, get the pallets, bring them back in, the bagels, the muffins. I'm like, you gotta be shitting me. I'm like, my other buddies are at a golf course right now doing nothing. And like, right. I'm slaving in this freaking freezer for 4 to 5 days a week. And I just can remember, like, in the mornings, Ronnie, when I'd go get the muffins, I'd put them on a tray. And if one of them hit the floor, I was like, well, what happens if a muffin hits the floor? They're like, just throw it away. So every morning I'm bopping off a lemon poppy seed muffin. Bam, there's breakfast. What do we got today? Nice. Bam, there's a croissant, a bagel, but I remember that too, bro. Like, I was like, get me to the field as quick as possible. I'm being tortured here in the Stop and Shop in Brewster.
I mean, you're like, don't these people know? Like, I rake for a living. Instead, they're giving you a parka and a hairnet. Go get them.
They were, dude. I was like, when do we start baking cookies? When do we start baking cookies or something? Baking, decorating cakes. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So Ronnie, after that, 1981, brother, I have to bring it up before we get to your pro career, but you were involved in the greatest college baseball game in the history. You threw 11 no-hit innings against Frankie Viola at St. John's.
That's right.
But can you take us back to that game and just what memories you have of it?
It's a very funny experience because St. John's came in the day before. They had all their uniforms on. They're all in this red. Each guy looked like he was 6'5", 210. The hats fit perfect. They get on the field. They go through a practice. And I'm like, oh, that's what practice is supposed to look like. They're taking infield. They're like humbabing it, throwing the ball around. Guys are running around the bases. They're taking BP. I mean, it was the most beautiful thing you've ever seen a college do. The Yale team, because we had a lot of guys taking MCATs, medical tests, and other things. The LSATs and MCATs were the same day.
Oh, no.
We had 6 guys there.
My God.
Two of them in shorts. One of them still in his khakis from like the 3:30 to 4:15 class. And we're out in the field, and we don't take any BP. We can't take any infield. So we played pepper for like 20 minutes.
Oh, my God.
That was our warm-up.
Oh, my God.
So we're watching these guys, and I knew, Frankie and John Franco were the main pitchers on that team.
Oh, Franco was on that team too.
Johnny Franco's on the team too, and I think they both were 10-0 or 11-0, something crazy. And I think they had won 52 or 53 games, something crazy. And I remember my whole thought going into the game was, we are not going to get embarrassed by these guys. I don't care how good they are. Not on my watch, or we're going to get embarrassed. Maybe we'll lose 5-2 or something, but we're not going to be embarrassed by these guys. And then, like most things, you always, unless you're an egotistical maniac, usually you underestimate, how much you have in your heart, how talented you are, how when you're backed up against the wall, what you can do, right? And it started to roll, and the next thing I know, we go. I'm like, these guys are still swinging and missing at the same pitches I've been throwing for 2 years here. So they're not much different, and it just, and it went, and, Frankie V was equally as good. He was awesome. And it was so much fun. I will say Frankie was more polished than I was. I don't know how many pitches he threw in that game, but he went 11 innings or 10 innings. It looked like he threw like 90 pitches. He just was fastball, changeup, ground ball, you're out. That kind of stuff all day long. And so we got to the 12th inning, and this guy, Steve Scaffa, who ended up having his own kind of website where he criticized the commentators. So like if you like a guy like he would go, boy, Darling's terrible. He didn't say that Delgado hit an 0-2 pitch or whatever. But he ended up getting a hit, stealing second, stealing third. I walked the guy first and third, and they ran the double steal play. And the catcher was supposed to throw it back to me. It didn't get back to me. It went through. And then the rundown was between my great friend Jeremy Spear, who is an artist from Hawaii, the coolest kid ever. And Jeremy and Brian O'Connor. Brian O'Connor is now a judge in Massachusetts. He's at first base. He was the kid from St. John's where I went to high school. Remember I told you that I had a friend at Yale, so it's really nice to have a guy from my high school there. So they're doing the rundown. Next thing you know, Scaff is dusting himself off. Remember the slide by Trey Turner last year where he watched him slide and he kind of got up all in the same motion? That's what Scaffa did. Scored the one run, and we end up losing. But you know what's the cool thing about it is there was about 50 scouts there, and Frankie V was supposed to be, I think, a third, fourth, fifth round pick. He went in the first round after that game. And I always tell him he still owes me money to this day because I got him from the fifth round to the first round in 2.5 hours.
But you guys talk about it. You catch up on it. Does it always come up when you see him and talk to him?
You know, we have a kinship that'll always be there. And as soon as he got sent to Toledo, because I went to AA for about a month or 2 months, and then AAA immediately afterwards. And he got to AAA after that. And we went to Toledo to play the Mud Hens. And he had his own apartment, and he invited me over, and we grilled the steak. And we didn't talk about the game at all. But we had, that feeling that I'll always have with him. Every time I see him, I have a smile, and I'm happy. It's a great feeling. We have something that no one else will have. And, there's no video really of it. I saw some news footage of it. But the Roger Angel, one of the great writers in the New Yorker, wrote a piece called The Web of the Game because he sat with Smokey Joe Wood during the game as they're watching this unfold. It's one of the coolest things to read if you ever want to read it. Sure. But it was just one of those things that, you couldn't predict it. No one was going to shut out or no hit that St. John's team. And for whatever reason, it happened for me that day. What's bad is that the greatest game I ever pitched, I lost. So I don't know what that says about me. And in some ways, I had some amazing years later with the Mets and all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. It's kind of weird. That might have been the best game I ever pitched.
Wow.
At 20 years old, that might have been, I don't know, like the Roger Clemens I know on this date. Maybe not on the date this comes out, but on this date that you and I are talking, or we are talking, Clemens struck out 20 of the Seattle Mariners on this date in '86. And I was just thinking that might have been my Clemens games. It just happened to be in New Haven.
By the way, I'm reading an article here, and this going into one of your last innings, it says both pitchers were approaching 170 pitches. Is that possible?
Yeah.
Wow.
I ended up throwing 176 pitches that day. The next day I played right field. I threw out a guy at home, and they were thinking of using me in the ninth if we tied it up. We never did. We ended up losing. We played two in barbecue, so that Case knows what that means. So, yeah. But it was a pretty cool experience.
That's when the men were men, Ronnie. You know what I mean? That's when the men were.
It was Case. So I get drafted after that, and I'm in New Haven, Yale, all these big beautiful buildings. I get signed right after that. My first stop is first stop is Shreveport, Louisiana. Half of the stadium is condemned. There's a guy walking around with a cooler singing "Cocaine here, marijuana in the rear," selling cold beer. I have to warm up. It's my first night. I have to warm up. It's nickel beer night. People are throwing beer at me while I'm warming up. I'm like, what the hell? This is professional ball? Professional what?
Oh my God, Ronnie, that's so great. That is so great. I know, man. You start getting to those small minor league towns, you're like, whoa. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto. It's a different world. So, Ronnie, so you get drafted first round, 9th overall by the Rangers. A couple years later, you're traded for Lee Mazzilli, who back in the day then, am I correct by saying he was kind of like the Jeter? He was like the good-looking player with the Mets. Like that was a big deal, right? For him to get traded.
He was like Jeter, Harvey. When Harvey with the Mets, he was that kind of persona. but he could play, man. He was the All-Star MVP in '79, I believe. But I don't know if you had this experience, but the draft is a very funny thing. So after this game is done, one of the scouts for the Seattle Mariners comes to my house. They have the number one pick, number one. So they have number one pick. They come to my house and say, we're going to make you the number one pick, but we want you to sign for X amount. And in those days, X amount for them was around $75,000, which is nothing to sneeze at, but a first round pick should get, 100 plus. So my dad, who it would have taken 5 years to make $100,000,
right.
All of a sudden becomes like this great agent and says, no, that's unacceptable. The agent leaves, and I don't know what happened after that. I think there was some talk around the game that I was going to go back to Yale, that I wasn't going to come out. So I kind of slipped to the 9th position, which was fine. And then I ended up signing for $127,500,
Wow.
which was so much money in those days. I immediately went out and got a T-top silver blue Datsun 280Z
Yes.
turbo. It was like the greatest car in the history of the world.
I'm so rich. I'm so rich.
I had never owned a car before. I've never owned a new car before. So it was awesome. And then, so I'm with Texas. I mean, remember the Trey Turner thing where he had to stay with San Diego because they traded him too quickly? I got traded literally 6 months later. And
Wow.
how I got traded is crazy. How I got traded, I spent the spring training with the big club in 1982. Don Zimmer's the manager. I make a start every 4th day. I'm pitching, I pitched 25 something innings in spring training. So Don Zimmer calls me in on, the last cut day. And he says, hey, listen, young man, you're going to go to Oklahoma City. You're going to make 4 starts. And then on April 26th, we're playing the Minnesota Twins. I don't know who it was, but we're playing the Minnesota Twins at home. We're going to call you up and you're going to make that start. Because in those days, you only needed 4 starters. Your 5th starter will come into play in late April. So I get in my 280C. I'm in Pompano Beach. I had to go to Plant City. You probably know Plant City.
Oh, yeah, Plant City. I know Plant City.
So I got to go to Pompano Beach, where the Rangers have minor league camp, Plant City. I get to driving. It's 4 hours. I make the drive 4 hours. By the time I got to my hotel, after the manager had told me I'm going to make 4 starts and start in late April, I had gotten traded.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, my gosh.
In those days, you used to have the phone in your room, right? And it had the red light. It means you had a message. So I see I have a message or whatever. And on the other end is Lou Gorman. And Lou Gorman was a guy that was with the Mets at that time. But I knew him as a schoolboy because he was around Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Bird Dog, and all that stuff. So I thought he was just calling to say hello. So I call him up. I say, hey, Lou, how are you? How you doing? He says, hey, Ron, how are you? He goes, congratulations. I said, I think he's talking about maybe I'm going to come up to the big club in late April. I said, thank you. That's so nice. Where'd you hear that from? He goes, no, you've been traded to the Metropolitans.
Oh my God.
So I have no idea who the Metropolitans are. I thought they were I thought maybe I was traded to the KBO or the Japanese league or something.
Right.
I didn't know where I was going. And he goes, and I go, the Metropolitans. He goes, the Mets. The Mets just traded for you. Lee Mazzilli's going to Texas, and you and Walt Terrell are going to the Mets. And I'm like, where are the Mets trained? He goes, they're in St. Petersburg. I'm like, where's St. Petersburg? He says, it's only about an hour south of you. And I'm like, okay, when do I have to report? He goes, well, like tomorrow. I'm like, what? So it just tells you how baseball can be. Here I was thinking I was going up in April. I get over to the Mets and Frank Cashman's there, takes me in the back room. I have to sign like a AAA contract. And he says, I just want to inform you, young man. He used to wear bow ties. I want to inform you, young man, that you'll be spending the entirety of the 1982 season in AAA. We do not rush our pitchers. I'm like, oh
my God.
You gotta be kidding me.
Oh, my gosh.
And that was it. And I go out. Jay Horowitz was just there, and he tells me we got to meet the media. I haven't talked to a person in the media in 2 years. I go outside, and there's 50 reporters from New York there.
Wow.
And the first question they asked me was like, he just got traded for Lee Mazzilli, one of the stars of this team. And in fact, he said he was so disappointed because he didn't mind getting traded, but getting traded for 2 minor leaguers made him feel bad. and they're like, what do you think about that? And they're like, I'm like, I don't know what to think about that, So, welcome to the New York media.
Wow.
Oh my, that was the first taste of the New York media. Gosh.
That's right.
But Ronnie, that turned out to be, probably, like you said, looking back at things, man, probably the biggest blessing of your life. You go to the Mets, you get called up in 83. 84 is really where you kind of, you do really well in that end part of 83, but 84 is where you make that opening day rotation. And I want to go back because Walt Terrell made it too. It was you, Walt Terrell, and Doc Gooden, right? That was Doc Gooden's rookie year, I believe, right?
That's right.
Dude, can you tell us about that? Because for all of us that were fans that looked at that team, and when Doc came on the scene, you're like, wow, I don't know if we've ever seen this kind of thing. And this is like Nolan Ryan right here, the stuff that he had. What was Doc Gooden like then? And were you thinking the same? Did you feel like you were looking at the same thing we were looking at as far as the stuff that he had?
Yeah. Well, first, before I got to Dwight, so when I was an undergraduate at Yale, I used to take the train down because I used to date this girl who worked for Sports Illustrated in Manhattan. And I would come down, see her on the weekends, and she would show me all around. And I remember I used to tell her, I said, I got to get here. This is me. I mean, Manhattan, this is where I should be living. So I ending up with a team that's going to be in Manhattan. And in 83, I had that September call up, 5 starts to show them what you can do. 84, I had a good enough spring training. I make the rotation. I win my first start in Cincinnati. Everything's going swimmingly. But in spring training that year, Davey Johnson was the new manager. And he was fighting for this kid from Single A, who was 19 years old. In Single A, he struck out 300 batters in 190 innings. Now imagine throwing 190 innings in A ball. 190 innings. So he strikes out 300, wins 20 games, whatever he won. So Davey's fighting for him. You know how sometimes in spring training, there's people in your camp you never get to see. They're not pitching on the same day you're pitching, or they're just not in your rotation. They're not in the same batting cage when you're in the batting cage. You just don't see him. So I never saw Dwight. And then I see him towards the end of spring training, and I was 22. He was 19, and it looked like he was 30, and I was 14. Wow. He just was so polished and so beautiful to watch. You were a kid when he first hit, but if you watched him, there was a ballet way to the way he delivered the baseball. And so he ends up making the team. He has an unbelievable rookie year, broke all the records. I was the second. He was number 1 starter. I was number 2. So in those days, you had to chart a pitcher in front of you. So he would pitch. I'd be charting his games from the bench. Fastball, curve, strikeout. Curveballs, fastball, strikeout. I mean, it was the most remarkable thing. He would have games of 9 innings, 2 hits, no runs, no earned runs, no walks, 15 strikeouts, 92 pitches. 92
pitches. Just 1, 2, 3, see ya. 1, 2, 3, see ya.
It was like the big kid that almost has a mustache in Little League. He strikes out all the kids. Yeah, when he's 12. That's what it was like watching it sometimes. It was unbelievable. And then the year he had, the next year, Case. I get to see great pitchers like Max and Garrett Cole and Jacob deGrom, of course. I didn't get to see in person Seaver or Gibson or any of those guys. But that year that he went 24-4 with a 1.53 ERA was it was child play. It made you feel as a pitcher kind of bad about yourself. You're like, God, man, I'm doing my best. It's just this guy is just so overqualified for this position. I remember how they used to say this guy should be called up to the next league. Right. There's just there isn't another league. That's how good he was.
Wow. I mean, that's what it looked like from afar as a fan. You're watching. I think I was, 10, 11 years old. My grandmother, Ruth Casey, was my whole family's from Long Island, New York. So my mom and dad my mom's from Islip, and my dad's from Sayville. So whenever we would go out to, for family reunions, my grandmother loved the Mets. So I'm like, we're in Pittsburgh, but I was like, all right, I'll adopt the Mets. So I started to watch, really watch the Mets. I knew, Ronnie, who you were years ago, brother, because my grandmother loved the Mets. But watching Gooden, I was like, he was punching tickets at an epic rate. Like you said, 1, 2, 3, see you later. But that year in 85, Ronnie, man, you're 9-2 out the break. You're an all-star that year. You end up 16-6. Can you take us back to that all-star game? Any stories you have from there that you remember that, you look back on fondly?
Oh, man. But it's very funny. Couple. My parents, I think it was the first time they had ever taken. No, it wasn't the first time my dad had taken a plane, obviously, but it was the first time my mom had ever been on. No, second time. Plane from Hawaii to California, train from California to Massachusetts. Second time she had been on a plane. My dad they get there, it's in Minnesota. So, it's all, my mom's like, what am I going to wear? And I'm like, just wear whatever you would wear to church or whatever. And they both come in. And I'm taking them around and introducing them to people, and they just could not get over the ice sculptures with the shrimps in them. They just could not. They could not get over it. They thought that was the greatest thing they had ever seen in their life. I caught my mother just staring at one for like 10 minutes at one point, but they loved that. And then as far as the game is concerned, I still have the pictures. In fact, they're in frames in this office on the floor, and they're going to be put on the wall, of pictures with Nolan Ryan and Fernando Valenzuela and Dale Murphy. And in those days, you didn't really, you didn't talk to the other all-stars. If you were in the National League, your job was to kick the ass of the American League. And if you're in the American League, it was the same. And it wasn't like you got together and say, or chatting with the American League. You hung out with your National League guys. So I had all these pictures, which were great. But our manager is Dick Williams, who managed the Red Sox in '67. Of course, all those great A's teams. But he was coach of the San Diego Padres team at that time. And remember, '84, the Padres had a great year. The ball went underneath.
Leon Durham.
Yeah, Leon Durham. So he comes up to Gooden and I. We're in the outfield shagging. And he comes out to Gooden and I and says, you young studs from the Mets, I just wanted to tell you one thing. He goes, congratulations on making the team, but I do not pitch young people in all-star games. What? So just you guys will have tomorrow off. So a part of me was pissed. Like, I want to be part of this game. But then I was in Minnesota in right field, and the ball kept going over my head over that trash bag. And I was like, maybe this is not a bad idea. We'll stay out of this game. Yeah. So it was, but I remember him saying that to me, and I looked at Doc, and Doc looked at me. I'm like, are you kidding? You don't going to need us for this game, whatever. Mm-hmm. And the National League ended up winning 3-1 anyway, so it didn't matter. But those are the kind of things that happen in those days, Case. Like the manager owns your future. And, like today you'd go, whatever. Yeah, exactly. So but true. then you're like, yes, sir, whatever you say, sir. I'm happy. So it was great to be on that all-star team. It was great to be around those guys. The signing of the baseballs I could have done without. What is it? It's like 60 dozen or something like that.
Yes.
My goodness. But it was a great time. And again, my parents with the shrimp ice sculpture to this day. I remember that forever.
Oh my God, Ronnie, that's so great. That's so great. So you guys as a team, like you and Doc and that whole rotation, Sid Fernandez, there's a lot of great players on those teams. Darryl Strawberry, Lenny Dykstra, right. Keith Mitchell's coming up. So 86, I think for baseball history, and especially with this 4-part documentary that ESPN did, exactly. You guys can't hide anymore, Ronnie. The cat's out of the bag, dude. We know how crazy you guys were. Take us back to 86, dude. Like Davey Johnson, the fans, everything. What was so special about 86 Mets?
Well, the hard part about it was that, out of Jump Street, middle of February, we're picked by everybody. But that means you have to win. Like, there's no way to go about it. You either win or you stink, one or the other. There's no way to go about it. But you're right. You look at that team, you look at that point, we probably had the best right fielder in Strawberry. We had the best catcher in Carter. We had the best first baseman. You can all have arguments about this. Best first baseman in Hernandez. The greatest pitcher in the game in Gooden. Lenny Dykstra was probably the greatest postseason player in Mets history. Kevin Mitchell, who would end up being an MVP, couldn't even play on the team. Like, he would occasionally be like our extra player. Be like, okay, we got to get Mitch in there. Okay, well, we'll play him today. Where are you going to play him? I don't know. Play him in left field. Like, this is one of the future great hitters in the game. It just was that kind of team. And we had Ray Knight at third, who was tough as nails. Really one of the heart and souls of the team that no one ever talks about. But coming into that season, we had to win, right? So we ended up having a great regular season, won 54 at home, 54 on the road. And but we get into the playoffs. Houston almost takes us down. The Red Sox almost take us down. It was very close. You know, a lot of lucky things had to happen to go along with the talent. Now, as far as that team and craziness, things that used to happen that don't happen anywhere else today. We'd go to hotels, and the hotel would take one of their rooms they would use for meetings, and they would turn that into the New York Mets bar, because the bar on the first floor just couldn't take all the people that were outside trying to get in. So there would be a private space for us and friends to do our thing. That was the first team that I ever had that I never took a regular elevator. We would come into hotels and we'd be whisked into the service elevators, and we'd go up with the people with room service or the maids, and they would take us up to our rooms because we couldn't take regular elevators in the hotels anymore. It was the craziest thing ever. And that team was so close and did everything together. I remember we lost a 3-game series to someone. I don't know who it was. And it was close to where we were going to clinch. And Davey Johnson took us all to a steak dinner. And we all were in there and drinking too much red wine, drinking beer, having big steaks. I mean, that's how that team was. If we went out, it was with 20 guys, not 5 guys. And it was lots of fun. Now, did it get out of control many times? Obviously, yes, it did. But I will tell you one thing that wasn't in the 4-part series and should have been. I've never played on a team that wanted to destroy people. Wow. They didn't want to just win. If the score was 5-2 in the 7th, they wanted to win 10-2. If a guy had shut him out for 5 innings, they wanted to drop 6 on him in the 6th inning. They just were tenacious, almost evil in the way in the way they went about competition, and because I think part of it is that they knew that we had to win that year, so there was no letting up. There was no, feeling good about yourself, because if we don't pull this off, right, we're going to kind of be the laughing stock here. And we all treated it accordingly.
Yeah, I remember my grandfather was a big Yankees fan his whole life on my mom's side. Yeah. I was 8 years old. Hey,
so was my grandmother.
Oh, there you go. Maybe they knew each other. But around 84 or 85, he stopped.
Do you guys still have the same grandmother? No.
So around 84, 85, he just stopped rooting for the Yankees and became a Mets fan because he didn't like the way Steinbrenner treated Yogi for those few years where he kept firing. So I'll never forget being at my grandmother's kitchen table. Now, when you're a kid, you're supposed to hate the other team. I was supposed to hate the Mets. That's right. But I started loving them. And then I'll never forget, he had a newspaper, and it had the Mets magic number in it. It was a poster or newsday or something. And I'm like, yeah. And I saw it, and it was like 74. And I was like, what does this mean? And he goes, that's their magic number to clinch. And I was like, but it's like May. And I really remember being like, they started putting the Mets magic number in the newspaper in May or June of that year. It was crazy.
Yeah. Crazy. It was crazy. It was just the expectation levels were so through the roof in everything, Case and Chinch, everything. I'm talking about, if you went into a restaurant, you knew that the restaurant was going to stop. If you went into a bar, we used to go to this place in Brooklyn called Pastels in Bay Ridge. We would go to Pastels, the music would stop until we got into the private room, and then they would start replaying the music so that people could line up and take a look at us walking into the club. Which, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. It's lucky that we're all not just in a loony bin, to tell you the truth. So,
who was the leader of that team, Ronnie?
There was a few leaders. Hernandez did it with the way he played. He brought over from the Cardinals that, he just did. You don't lose. Right. I mean, I don't care how you feel. I don't care that you got a sore ankle. We win. That's what we do here. We just win. And he brought that over from the Cardinals. But I know Ray Knight, starting in '85 when we got him, he was just one of the heart and souls. Here's an example. We are 3 out in '85, and we have 3 against the Cardinals. They're leading us by 3. So I beat Tudor on Friday night. We ended up matching zeros. Straw hits a ball at Busch Stadium off the clock, breaks the clock, and we win 1-0. Oh yeah, crazy. Hits it off Ken Daly, hang and hook. So I come in the clubhouse afterwards, and Ray Knight, who had been a veteran many, many years, comes over and gives me this big bear hug, and he's crying. And I'm like, Ray, are you all right? And he's like, no, this is the greatest feeling in the world. I'm so emotional because this is the greatest feeling in the world. I'm like, oh, this guy's a keeper. You know what I mean? If he cares that much. So, we had a lot of leaders. Now, Gary Carter was a leader as well, but, with a lot of that team, we're a very young team, other than Carter and Hernandez and Ray Knight, very young team. I mean, I was 25. Most of Gooden's 22, Straw's 24, Sid Fernandez 24, Lenny's probably 24. I mean, Mitchell's 23. I mean, the whole team is very, very young, and so Gary, who was so unbelievable, but kind of like, he was like a goody two shoes. And when you're 22, 23, that's not the guy you gravitate. You gravitate to other people. But it wasn't his fault. It was just us being young and dumb. But that happens. So
how did you navigate the New York nightlife, being that young and playing big league ball games and winning? Because I know there's been nights, I'm saying the next night you're like, whoa, I don't know what I need, but I need something.
Well, luckily being a pitcher, you pick your spots. So it was easy for me. And the players were really judicious in the way they attacked the nightlife, like the everyday players. If there was the day off, you always knew what player was given the day off the next day. Because you'd go into the bar and one of them would be in there and you're like, oh, you got the day off tomorrow? Yes, I do. And, and they would have too much fun. I remember one night, Keith had a party at his apartment called the 33D Club. He called it that because it was apartment number 33D in the Dag Hammarskjöld building on 2nd Avenue. So he throws a party, and for whatever reason, now this is going to sound awful and probably flag all the folks, but it's just a story from the 80s. Don't get crazy.
Right.
But
right.
It ended up all the young ladies that were there had a title. They were a month, or a Miss USA, or a Miss Universe, or whatever it was. It was just one of those crazy parties. I know I just went there for an hour and left because I was pitching the next day. I pitched the next day against Atlanta. We win the whole thing. I talked to Keith before the game. He's got the kind of black underneath his eyes. He's got the coffee. In those days, almost every player smoked. So he's smoking, and the coffee, black under his eyes. Game starts. He's ready to roll, ready to go. Probably got no sleep. 5 for 5.
Wow.
I mean, that's how that team is.
Oh my God.
Throws 5 knocks out there, and they weren't going to be denied. You've been with players. You've been in that spot yourself, Case, where you're just not going to be denied. And that team was able to do that for almost an entire season.
Wow, man, that is awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Much respect right there, Keith. You think Keith Hernandez is a Hall of Famer?
I do. I do. Now, granted, he could have used 3 more outstanding years to make him easily over the top. But I think what has happened, Case, and you know this much better now. I know it much better than I did when I played. Certain metrics and analytics about players and how they played, they shine a little brighter now than we even knew when they played. And I will just say, he was a transformative defensive player. And you'd only say that, I guess I'll say that about Ozzie Smith. I guess it was a transformative defensive player. Keith Hernandez was a transformative defensive player. Johnny Bench was a transformative defensive player. You can make the argument Clemente, Mays, but there's not many of them. There's just not many guys that define the position, change the position, and that's got to ring right. But he's got over 400 on base. One season he had a 484 on base.
Jeez.
His MVP, two world championships. I think that the Veterans Committee at some point is going to elect him, and there's going to be no one prouder than me because he's my buddy, he's my friend, he's my teammate. Just hopefully he invites me, or I'll be pissed off.
I'm sure he will, brother. I'm sure he will. I want to go back really quick to that game, to the game 6, 2-0 in the ninth. I mean, everyone knows it. Everyone that loves baseball knows this game. 2-0 in the ninth. You guys are losing. Now, is there 2 outs in the ninth too, or?
Yeah. We're losing by 2 runs.
2 runs.
By 2 runs after Boston scores 2 in the top of the 10th off Rick Aguilera. Well, I'm sure you had lots of at-bats against Aggie, right?
Yes.
So Rick Aguilera gives up a couple of points.
Okay.
Dave Henderson takes them deep for a home run. They squeak out another run. I think Marty Barrett got another run-scoring single. I think he had 14 hits in the series or something crazy. So they score 2 runs, top of the 10th. The top of the 10th, Mel Stottlemyre comes to me, says, listen, I want you to get in your car and go home. We're going to win this game. Because I was pitching game 7. Yeah, so I start 1, I start 4, I start 7. He comes up to me before the 10th, before they Aggie gives up the 2 runs. He says, I want you to go home. The reason being, there's an explanation for this. Shea Stadium had 57,000 people every night. So to get, after the games were done, we would have to wait there 2 to 2 hours and 15 minutes before we could even get in a car, get on the subway, get a cab, or whatever to get out of there. You just couldn't. People would just mill around, hang out. It was a day that Chinch knows this better than anyone. Everyone took the subway. Right. You just took the subway. So people would, end up just hanging out, whatever. So he was doing that to make sure I got home before 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So I get in my car, I'm driving down the Grand Central Parkway, and I'm listening to Bob Murphy on the radio, and Hendu goes deep. So wheel around the car because, you want to be with your teammates in victory or defeat, right? So I wheel it around. I'm coming in. There were 2 entrances to the Mets clubhouse, one from the field and one from the Diamond Club. So I come in the Diamond Club entrance, and I get there, and the clubhouse attendant is there. He had a 9-inch TV. He's watching the game as Keith makes the second out. So I'm coming in one door to watch the game. I hear Keith come in the other door after making the second out, door slamming, what all hitters say after they make a big out, expletive delete. Yeah, exactly. God damn it.
Yeah.
And he goes into the manager's office. So he's watching from the manager's office. I'm watching from clubhouse attendant's office. And Carter gets a hit. Now, anyone who knows baseball, plays baseball at a high level, knows one thing. If your team is behind and you're one place and they get a hit, you're not moving. You are staying put. So I just sat in that room and watched it all unfold. Kid would not be denied. Mitch ends up getting a base hit. He was in the clubhouse like 15 seconds before. He runs out in the club and just hits a hanging hook, hits it for a hit. Ray Knight fights off a ball, hits it about 180 feet. Wouldn't even gone out in Williamsport. That's another hit. And then all of the stuff with the wild pitches, and of course Mookie and Buckner, the whole thing. But I will tell you, after it goes through Buckner's legs, and you're probably too young to appreciate Bill Buckner. Bill Buckner was a lot like you, Case. He could rake, man. He could rake and hit, and he could hit anything. He was a bad ball hitter when he had to be. 2-strike approach. He's a lot like you, to tell you the truth.
Almost 3,000 hits too. Almost 3,000 hits, Ronnie.
No, he was amazing hitter. Hitter. Hard to get out. So, he has this awful thing happen to him, and we win the game. But I remember all the guys came in the clubhouse, and the clubhouse at Shea Stadium was just awful. It had that popcorn ceiling, and the people are going nuts, and they're jumping up and down, and Shea Stadium is like it's moving. Like you are – I've been in a couple of earthquakes. That's what it felt like. It was an earthquake. Like the room is moving, like shit is moving. And all of a sudden, as we're celebrating this great comeback, the dust of accumulating all the years is coming through the popcorn ceiling and gathering on the floor like snow. And here we are all excited, and most guys have their shirts off or whatever, and it's coming down, and like 3 inches of this dust and dirt and soot is now on the ground of our clubhouse. And I remember to look into someone, and I know what my thought was. My thought is, this place is coming down. I mean, this is coming down. And the second thought, because you're young and dumb and feel like you're immortal, is like, okay, if you're gonna go, this is the way to go. I mean, that's how it felt. And then finally, it kind of simmered down a little bit. But you had 57,000 people jumping up and down. What else? Wow. No engineer accounted for that. I'll tell you.
Right. That. Oh my gosh, dude. So here you have it, though. You win Game 6, and you're the Game 7 starter, but you're still at Shea. You're still at Shea.
Right.
So what happened? What time did you get home?
Well, I didn't get home till 2:33, but and I also had my parents sleep in my apartment, so it was crazy. But I started Game 1, I lose 1-0. I start Game 4, shut them out. Man. So now I have Game 7. I get to the park the next day, and it's raining. So they call the game off early. So the game never happened. I think if we had played that next day, probably the Red Sox would have absolutely no chance because, I mean, there was nothing to be said. I mean, the worst thing that could have ever happened to a team happened to them the night before. It was just awful. But they had 24 hours to get back, and they had a veteran team and a good team. And by the time we got to the next day, it was my third start in 10 days against a veteran team. And, you rack your brain. I only went 3 1/3 or 3 2/3, whatever. Got knocked around, gave up 3 runs. Sid Fernandez comes in and saves my ass. And, when a game like that happens to you, after you come down from the excitement of winning Game 7 and winning a world championship, think, God, what should I have done to be a little better? And then Mel Stottlemyre told me something the next year in spring training, and we were just having a beer, shooting the shit. And I said, Mel, man, I've been racking my brain what I could have done a little better in Game 7. It's like, hey, Ron, you pitched 3 times, started 3 games in 10 days against a veteran team. He said, the other team's trying too. And that took it all away from me, made me feel better. And it was like, that's right. I mean, it's just, these are gladiators going against each other. And, it's not like just because you want to have 4 hits, you're not going to get 4 hits. Just because you want to throw a shutout, the other team has a lot to say about that. And it was great advice. And Sid comes in, saves the day by holding it even. And then, the Mets get off. Strawberry hits a long home run. It was just unbelievable. And that night, so after the game's done, that night, we kind of get out of there. We get to this place called Columbus, on Columbus and 78th, sorry. And we get in, and there's a table set up for us. And at the table, it's Robert De Niro and his son. It's Mike Tyson. It's Sean Penn. It's like it's a who's who of everybody in New York is there with all the Mets players, or half the Mets players coming in there. And my mom, I brought my parents everywhere during this thing. So my mom comes in, she's sitting next to Mike Tyson, and she spends a whole night sitting next to Mike. Mike was, in a matter of 4 or 5 months, was going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. And I said, Mom, how'd you like? I'd met Mike a couple times. I'd been to his fights on his way up. And I said, how do you like Mike? I said, he's a really sweet kid. She goes, he's so sweet, but boy, he's troubled, son. He's very troubled. And I was like, I said, that's why he's a great fighter, Mom. Guys like me who've had a great childhood will never be at a fight.
Oh my gosh, man. That is, what a story. What a story. What about the parade a couple days later, Ronnie? What was that like?
Well, it was the next day.
Was?
And, the next day. So it ended up 3 million people came down to Lower Manhattan. 3 million people.
Oh my
and,
God.
I'm taking my parents, and the only way to get down there, I figure, is we got to take the subway. So I go down to get on the subway. All the subways are filled. My parents are disgusted because they'd never seen a subway, and they don't realize what they really look like, right? So they're disgusted. So I get up top, and it's about an hour and a half before the whole event. I take my parents. We walk down. I lived in Tribeca, so it wasn't far. I take my parents, and we walk down Broadway the opposite way of the parade. So we're going down Broadway in the Canyon of Heroes with people lining up, 3 million strong. I'm walking from north to south down to the South Ferry Terminal, where the ferry goes to Staten Island. That's where you start. And we're getting a standing O, like walking the opposite way with my parents. My parents are just like flipping out. They don't even understand it. And we get in the cars and we come up, and it was just, I don't know, it's surreal to see 3 million people is the craziest thing you've ever seen. People hanging out of windows. The mayor's building there is like kind of like a big triangle, and it was just people. It had to be, I don't know, 500 people deep. It was, you couldn't see where it ended. That's how deep it was. And it was just nuts. So to see the crowd, I went up in the mayor's office. It's funny, mayor's office. And I go up.
And now you're back in the mayor's office.
Exactly. Now I'm back in the mayor's office. So I go up to the very, very top of the mayor's office, which you never could do post 9/11, right? This is before that, many years. I go up, they let me all the way up. I get in a top window, and I'm hanging out the window, and I can see everything and everyone. And it was one of the finest things ever. Now, as a team, I think we had about 3/4 competition. We had three-quarters of our guys made it there. We had a quarter of the guys that just, had
just
too much.
Too hungover.
just too hungover to make it. But it is something I'll never forget. And, for my parents to be in it, my little brother Charlie came. He was riding in the back of an open air Mustang with me. God. And we just, it was just surreal. It was surreal.
Dude, that is so awesome. And on a side note, which I thought was pretty cool, was a couple SNL was because you guys won it. It was one of the first times Saturday Night Live had ever started a little later. And a couple weeks later, they asked you to go out there, right? Didn't you open up Saturday Night Live 2 weeks later?
I opened Saturday Night Live up a couple of times because games from the Mets series had preempted SNL. One preempted it completely. That was Game 6. And one preempted it by an hour. It started an hour late. So I was always the guy that went on to to this day, it's some of my greatest recollections. But it was just, I don't know, like it's the sweet spot of life. Sean is a pretty amazing place to be. And, but we still got it. We still got it going. And baseball, we're still involved in baseball, and I think that's one of the greatest things ever.
No, it is great, man. So, Ronnie, moving it along a little bit, but you go a few more great years with the Mets, and then you end up in Oakland for your last 5 years of your career. Can you take us back to that? What was that like for you going out to the West Coast, playing with McGuire and Canseco at the time, the Bash brothers, and I just remember you on the mound wearing those white shoes too. I'm like, hey, you go out to Oakland, you got to wear the white shoes.
Oh, it took me forever to get used to those white shoes. I was like, this is the ugliest thing I've ever seen. It's not only the white shoes, it's got the yellow sanitaries you got to deal with too. It was crazy, but I loved it. It came at the right time for me. I went from a team where total scrutiny to the first time I pitched in Oakland, I won my 100th game. And after the game, there was one reporter and one cameraman, and I spent 5 minutes. I drove 10 minutes to Alameda, and I was having something to eat. I was like, what is this place? We had a lot of day games in Oakland. So I went from this rowdy bunch of guys, like, where are we going to go? We're going to go to Canistell's. Are we going to go to, the Xenons? Where are we going tonight? We're going to Limelight. What are we doing? I get to Oakland, a lot of day games. Guys were like Terry Steinbach, like, Steiny, what do you do after the games? He goes, well, we usually go to someone's house and we barbecue, and then we play wiffle ball with the kids. And I was like, this is awesome. But it was awesome. It came right at the perfect time. I was like, that's exactly what I should be doing. Playing some wiffle ball with the kids, drinking a beer, and barbecuing with my teammates. And it's just, it was great, to play for LaRussa and Duncan, who was my pitching coach. And
that's right.
And then McGuire and Canseco were, Strawberry was always like the biggest guy in the room, right? But now you had a room full of Lansford, Dave Henderson.
Was Ricky
McGuire,
was Ricky on those teams?
Ricky,
or no?
Canseco, Harold Baines, Dave Parker.
It was just God.
And then you got Eck, and you got Stu, and you got Storm Davis, and it was like a celebrity team, except we were living in Alameda, barbecuing and playing wiffle ball. It was a great experience, and how it all ended. If we want to, how it all ended is that on my birthday, when I was 35 years old, I get called into LaRussa's office, and he says, hey, listen, he goes, we got to start this guy, Doug Johns. I'll never forget, a left-hander. He goes, we got to start this guy, see what he can do. You've had a tough year. I did. I had like one of the worst years anyone could ever have. He said, we need to get this kid in there, but we want you to stay around, because Eck and I were close. He was like, I want you to stay around, be here for Eck. You guys can hang out. We'll just put you on the DL. And I'm like, well, first, you should wish me happy birthday. It's my birthday today.
Oh, my God.
LaRussa goes to me, he goes, do not tell me it's your birthday. Please do not tell me. I said, it's my birthday today. And then I said, and I said, the second thing is that I've been fortunate enough. I've never, ever went on the DL. And I said, I don't want to go on the DL. I want to end my career, never going on the DL. Wow. And I remember I packed my bags. I didn't pack my bags. I just got dressed because all the guys were in BP when he called me in. So I don't know have you ever been released, Case?
I was on the verge. Yeah.
So you get released, and one of the great things about playing professional baseball, Major League Baseball, is you're throwing down every day, man, with your teammates, and you're there for them, they're there for you. And for me, every fifth day I got a chance. My friends are doing it every day. And then all of a sudden you realize you're not going to be thrown down with these guys. And they're out at BP. And I felt like a piece of shit. Like, oh, this is awful. This young guy is going to take my place. He's not really that good yet. He might be.
Right.
So what does that say about me? I'm really bad. So I get in my car, and I lived about 30 minutes away. And this is not PC, but too bad. So I stop at a 7-Eleven. I get one of those tall boys, tall boy Bud Lights. Yeah. And I drink it on the way home. So I'm drinking a Bud Light. And I'm drinking it at what time is it? Like 6 o'clock. The sun's going down. I'm like, this is so beautiful. I'm having a cold beer at a time I would never have a cold beer. I'm driving home to my family in my house. The sun's coming down. I see a sunset. This is awesome. And I get to my house, and my first wife is there. She's like, what are you doing home? I said, I'm home. I'm done. I'm not playing anymore. And she's like, oh, my goodness, we're so happy. My boys are there. They're in the pool. They come into the house, and they couldn't really understand it. They were too young for it. And then my ex-wife goes, by the way, I'm leaving for Monterey. I was in Northern California. I'm leaving for Monterey because I have a tennis tournament. And the boys are going on a camping trip. They're going to be picked up in about an hour.
Oh, God.
So I watch, her leave to Monterey. The boys get picked up to go on a camping trip. And I just realized this beautiful family has been doing their thing the whole time. Like, they're not revolving around me playing baseball. They've been doing stuff. And here I am thinking that I'm home. Okay, let's go. Let's get the love on, And they're like, we're gone. So that whole week, they're doing stuff. I'm in the house, and we had a big house in this place called Black Hawk. It's like a golfing community. And I'm in the house the whole week. So I said, okay, I'm going to get a book. I'm going to chill. I'm going to hang out. Every day, there's a guy to fix the cabinets, the pool guy, the gardener, the landscaper, the garage is not working great. Every day there's someone in the house. It's driving me crazy. I'm like, I need to go back and play ball. But it never was to be. I was done.
Ronnie, do you have any regrets? Like, because I in my mind, I think, okay, you had a bad year. You were having a bad year, but how many times do you come back maybe the next year and have a good year? And I know you didn't want to go on the DL, but did you ever think, like, when you were done, man, I had something left in the tank. Maybe I should have played another year? Yeah,
that's a great question. I think physically, I could have definitely played and all of that. But remember, 95 is my last year. So 94 is the strike. 95 spring training starts late. And I was just honest with myself. I lost the fever. The fever that you have that burns inside you? Yep. I lost it. And you don't get that back. And I remember being ashamed that I'd lost it because, I was uber competitive and crazy, when it was my day to pitch. And it goes. If you don't rekindle it, it just goes away. And the pilot light burns out. And then you're left like every other knucklehead in the world. So, you know what I mean?
Dude, I had that same feeling my last year in Boston. I even hit pretty decent, and people were like, "Why are you retiring?" And I remember having that conversation with Harold Reynolds because I was asking about the network. I said, "You know what? I'm just done. I really believe if I can't play this game with my foot on the gas, all gas, 100 miles an hour, 100%, like even if I'm at 99, 98%." I can't do it. And that was it. I just felt like that pilot light went out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy.
So it was, you know what? You don't deserve to play the game if you're not fired up about it. You don't deserve it. So
I agree. Yeah. So after that, brother, like couple years, you're in the real world a little bit, then you start getting into broadcasting, but really your biggest gig has been with the Mets since 2006. Yeah. And you've been there 2006 to 2022. Do you till now, till the present moment, do you love the booth? Do you love, what's it like working with Keith Hernandez now in the booth? How has that relationship been?
Well, I've been lucky. I'm one of the few guys that somehow still pulls it off. Oh, I might have to. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. We can edit it too. We're good. So.
Okay. Yeah. So I think my ear pods are done. So let me talk to you this way.
Okay.
So I want that have been very lucky to have 3 different networks that I can work with, SNY, TBS in the postseason, and of course the network, MLB network. It's one of the greatest things ever. But as far as getting into it, what happens after you're done playing, I don't know if this happened to you, is that you don't want anything to do with baseball. When I was done playing, I don't want to watch a game. I don't want to hang out. I didn't even want to play the game or do anything. And then you realize after 3, 4, 5 years that, God, you really love the game. That's why you played it. It's because you really love it. And the avenue to broadcast came up, and I was like, that's an interesting way to kind of get back into the game. And, I don't have to coach and be there 12 hours a day or any of that kind of stuff. And when I started broadcasting, I just realized that it's an homage to my dad because he taught me how to play. And there's a lot of things I say on air that he taught me when I was 6 and 7 years old that I still remember. So it's really old school and new school, but the old school comes from him teaching me how to play. All the simple things. He used to say, if you're an infielder, just follow the baseball. If it's hit to the third baseman, just inch that way, just in case it goes off him, or you can back him up or whatever. He goes, the ball feels like it's like a marionette. All the players are moving in certain ways. if the ball goes to right field, the left field is going this way because he might want to back up with it. Like all of that stuff. He taught me 1,000 things. So it's kind of an homage to my dad. And I found that I love watching the games. You know, I feel like, don't tell anybody, because at some point, really, all I'm doing is watching the games. So you feel a little guilty about that. But I love watching the games because, again, just like when you and I played, you see something different every single night. I just did a game. 2 guys got hit with the ball on the bases in one game. 2 different guys got hit with the ball on the bases, and we ended up talking about, is it a fair rule if a guy gets hit because the batter gets a hit? The guy's out, and the batter gets a hit, and we were talking about, is that fair that the guy hits a ground ball and it kind of is? It's a definite out.
Yes, it's fair. I want that. I had a lot of hits that way.
Exactly. So, you know, those are the kind of conversations that baseball can lend itself to because of the nature of the game. You have plenty of time to muse about things that you find interesting.
What's been your best moment in the booth, Ronnie?
Boy, been a lot of good ones. I think the Santana no-hitter. I'll do it for the. I think the Santana no-hitter for the Mets probably was the highlight. I think in the postseason, I got to watch Justin Turner hit a walk-off home run against John Lackey on the 30th anniversary of Kirk Gibson's home run in the same ball.
Oh my God!
I mean, it was
that's awesome.
And you know Dodger Stadium. You've been there when they're loud, and it was crazy. And then, as far as the network's concerned, the network has been such a great thing for me because everyone there is so young. Like there are people there 35 years younger than I am, and to hear how they think about the game or enjoy the game. And Chinch knows this better than anyone. When we used to have our meetings, and Chinch would be overseeing the meetings, and we'd have kids that were Nationals fans that are 27 years old. And you'd say something, they go, well, you know, that's not how I feel about that. And I'd be like, that's awesome that person feels, one, brave enough to talk about the game with, you know, old relics like us. But also they think about the game a lot differently than we think about. You know, they want to see like a highlight of the game. They don't want to see all 4 hours of the game, you know? Right. So you learn a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things from the network, not only about the game and young people and how they view the game, but also the business of the game, the business of MLB, some good and some bad. So all of that stuff is a learning experience. So.
One last question, Ronnie, before we get to we do this thing called 9 and 90. But one last question I want to ask you is, you know, how has the game, you've been around this game so long, brother, and it's really cool, you know, to ask this question to you. How has the game changed? And what do you like about today's game that, you know, maybe was different from, you know, back when we played?
Well, I think that the game has ramped up to a place that I never thought was even physically possible for guys to be throwing 100 miles an hour. And it's not just one guy, you know, it's 25 guys can throw 100 miles an hour. I walk in clubhouses. When I was a player, I was the tallest person. I was always in, you know, great shape like all of us are. And I look at guys in the clubhouse today, I'm like, what? Like every guy's 6'5". Every guy's 6'5". Every guy's 225. Ripped and so uber talented. It's amazing. And but the thing I miss is that, you know, the game's being taught in a certain way, and that's all right because it's their generation. They can learn the game any way they want to learn the game. But all the little things that I find so interesting about the game, the instinctual things that I find about the game, are being pushed to the wayside because they don't make money. Sometimes great base running, you're not going to turn that into dollars. Being a guy who backs up home when you're a pitcher after you've given up 4 runs in 2 innings, no one's going to notice that. But you know what? someone like me at my age, I'll notice that, and I'll feel different about that player than I would have before he gave up the runs. The other day, a Mets pitcher had to throw a pitch up and in that started a brawl, and you think to yourself, boy, I feel a lot different about that pitcher now, that he's brave enough to take on that responsibility to protect the teammate. All of that, I think, are the little things that are getting lost in all of our greatness to velocity, whether it's off the bat, whether it's out of a hand. All of that thing is amazing, and it's all powerful, and it's all great to watch. But baseball's always been, and it will always be, about the little things that are done. And I don't think we should ever forget that.
No, I love it, man. I love that. And well spoken, too, because like you said, you get to watch it night in and night out. And that team this year that you're going to be able to watch looks like a pretty good team.
Yeah, no, they you know, the great thing about baseball, Case, you know this better than I, you know, they've done it for a month. All you got to do it for 5 more months. That's all.
That's it.
And stay healthy. Yeah.
Stay healthy, stay together, and just know, just like hitters and pitchers, teams run into slumps. You're going to have that May or June where you go, 10-15, and you're going to think the sky is falling. You're never as good as you are, and you're never as bad as you are. You fit somewhere in the middle all the time, whether you're a hitter, a pitcher, or a team.
I love that, man. I love that. All right, the last thing we do, Ronnie, Chinch and I do this thing called 9 and 90. Boom. Chinch asks these 9 dumb, fun questions, and then I'll answer first, then you go second.
Hall of Fame baseball broadcaster Marty Brenneman here. It's time for 9 in 90, the most ridiculous segment in all of sports.
Yeah.
So good.
We make you sit here for 2 long hours, and then we do something really stupid at the time where you probably got to get to the ballparks. But anyway, so
that's the way to do it. If we did this first, we'd never recover.
Yeah, that's true. Exactly. All right, so we'll start with Case, and you just pick up right where he leaves off. And in honor of our friend Ron here, Case, better movie based in Hawaii, 50 First Dates, or Forgetting Sarah Marshall?
Oh, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I love that movie. I love that movie.
What do you got, Ron?
I'm going to go with 50 First Dates only because the Hawaiians have a great role in that. They have that local little eatery, that breakfast place where they go to. I'll go 50 First Dates.
Nice. All right, there we go. Perfect. All right, which of these Rons had a better career, Sean? Ron Howard or Ronald Reagan?
I think Ron Howard had a hell of a career. I mean, God, he was on Happy Days, and then he's directed. I think he's doing better than Ronald Reagan.
I think Ron Howard, too. How about Mayberry RFD? He was on
that.
So
That's right.
He's got the longest career. That guy has bank, man.
Yeah, he sure does.
Time.
And he lives in Connecticut away from everybody else, I think, right? All by himself. Oh, this is a super tough one, football fans. 1 game. Brady, Montana, Bradshaw, and I'll throw Manning in there.
Brady. Come on.
I'm going to go with Montana only because it's my dad's favorite player, and he swears by him. And all my brothers have to argue with him that it's Brady because they're Massachusetts. So in his honor, I'll go with Montana.
So hey, Ronnie, he's a Pittsburgh guy, right? Joe Montana's a Pittsburgh guy.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's where the quarterback come from.
That's right. Quarterback. All right, this is a little easier. Would you rather be a bird or a fish, Sean?
I'd rather be a bird. Who would want to fly all around and go to Florida every winter?
Hawaiian people, we need the water, vitamin D, all that stuff.
Perfect. This one then I should know the answer to. I think I do. Weekend getaway, Sean. Vegas, hiking in the mountains, or a beach hut?
I think hiking in the mountains. No, wait, hang on. No, a beach hut. I think a beach hut.
Yeah. You don't want to be sweating up in the mountains. And I want one of those Snoop Dogg commercials with the cold beer.
Oh yeah, Corona. My dad always used to say, he's like, you never see people smiling when they're either jogging or hiking.
So true.
All right, this is a tough one. Favorite Mets fan comedian? You got a tough list here. Seinfeld, Kevin James, Chris Rock, or Jim Brewer?
Oh, I like Jim Brewer, man. I was on Jim Brewer one time on MLB Now, and I was laughing my ass off, so he became one of my favorites. So Jim Brewer.
This might take longer, but Jim Brewer bought me dinner recently in spring training. I just arrived at the airplane, sat down at the thing. He was sitting next to me. I didn't even know he was sitting there. He had a hat on. And right when I was about done, we started talking a little bit, and he paid for my meal. So wow. I love him. But Chris Rock is my guy, especially what he's gone through. But when he had that joke about saying, people talk about guns, we got to get rid of guns, we got to get rid of this and that, whatever. He said, no, you just got to make bullets $5,000 because then someone will come up to you and say, I would shoot you if I could afford it.
That's a great one. That's a great one. He has one other that is one of my favorites where he was talking about Siegfried and Roy, and he goes, everybody said the tiger went crazy. That tiger didn't go crazy. He just went tiger. Anyway, all right, moving along here. You're watching a documentary. What genre are you picking? Murder mystery, animals in the wild, how it was made, or history of war?
I'm probably going with what was the first one?
Murder mystery. This isn't that important.
Yeah,
you can answer.
Yeah,
anyway.
murder mystery.
Okay.
Yeah, I've always been a history guy. I'm a history of war. I can't get enough of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, Korea. I love that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Two more. Mid-game snack while you were playing, Case. Double bubble or seeds?
Mid-game snack was like a 32-ounce Mountain Dew in like the fifth.
You have to remember, I was a pitcher, so when I was pitching nothing, on the other 4 days, if I'm in Philly, I'm having that huge cheesesteak.
Yes,
made in Columbus on a hot, made in the clubhouse on a hot pot.
The best cheesesteak in Philly is in the clubhouse in Philly. Is the best cheesesteak.
That is awesome. All right, last one here. If you never played baseball, which of these would you most likely do? Should you be a matador, a cattle herder, a dog breeder, or a barista?
I'd probably... Is a barista the guy that holds for the Bulls?
No, a barista makes your coffee at Starbucks.
That's the matador. The matador is that guy. Is that right?
Yes.
Well, you know what? What the hell? I even forget what the question was. Okay. Whatever. I'm gonna give me a matador. I like the bulls coming at me. I like the action. Let's get it on.
You have to be the matador. Young, being the matador, you get all the girls somehow that way.
That's right. They love the matadors. They love it.
All right, that was 9-90.
All right, Ronnie, thank you so much, brother. This has been so wonderful, dude. We've been waiting to have you on, and you delivered for us, man. We appreciate it, and what a journey you've had, dude, and many more years to come. Many more years to come, brother.
I'm disgusted with myself. All right, guys, I'll see you.
All right, Ronnie, thanks, brother. See you, my man. Dude.
Unbelievable. I love that.
That was awesome.
So awesome.
Oh, my gosh.
What was your favorite story? What was your favorite story?
Dude, he just has so many stories. I kind of love the story when they won the whole thing, and afterwards they went in. There's De Niro and Sean Penn, Mike Tyson, and his mom's talking to Mike Tyson all night.
The unbelievable story. We didn't even get into the fact that he taught Big Bird how to pitch on Sesame Street. We didn't even get there, Sean.
Dude, he was on the cover of GQ, Big Bird. Dude, it was too much. There was so much good stuff, and I got my timer going. I'm like, holy shit, we're an hour and 5 minutes. I told Ronnie, hour 15, we're going to go over it, and he's got to freaking probably have his game tonight or something. But I was, dude, what an awesome dude. I mean, obviously work with Ron, he's a good friend, love him to death. But when you start going back into his life and it's unbelievable. It just was, what a cool story, the Ron Darling story. I'm so glad we could tell it here in the mayor's office, have Ronnie in, and if you're a Mets fan out there and you don't tune into this, you got real big problems.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to say, I have to say, like, he has been such a great influence in my life. He's taught me a lot. I've bounced so many ideas off of him. First, he can be if he wanted to be, he's the funniest man in the room or person in a room. Yeah. If he wants to be the smartest man in the room, he can be like that any day. He is You remember the world's most interesting man, the Dos Equis guy?
Yeah, yeah.
Screw that guy. Ron Darling.
Ron Darling
is the world's most interesting man, hands down. And I love him.
I think he is, man. I think he is. Oh, man, that was great, Chinch.
Awesome, dude.
So great, brother. And, I just want to tell thanks to everybody listening to us. And this is, we're as excited as you are listening to these interviews. The guys that come in the mayor's office, so much great stuff. Ronnie Darling delivered again. But keep delivering for us if you can. Download, subscribe, hit the like button. But it helps us a ton, and we can see the numbers growing. So thanks a lot. And Chinchy, brother, I love you, my man. Grateful for you. Stay grateful. I will see you for Fun Back Friday.